panel discussion. So we will leave questions to the end so that questions can be addressed to the whole panel. So Heather, over to you at Cleveland.
Thank you. I'm Heather Manduhano, Education Coordinator here at the Cleveland Institute of Music, and I know that all of you are familiar with CIM as a conservatory, and you're probably aware of the work that we do through video conferencing at the conservatory level, facilitating private lessons, master classes, coaching sessions, etc., with schools that may be thousands of miles away. However, you may not know that there's another way that we are using video conferencing technology to spread music around the globe as an educational resource to teachers in public and private elementary, middle, and high schools. Last year alone, we taught around 350 classes to kindergarten through 12th grade students in 3 countries using video conferencing technology. We currently have around 30 classes in our catalog. There is a variety of music education classes, ranging from the obvious coaching sessions and master classes delivered to high school performing ensembles, to general music classes for elementary age children, where students might learn about the instruments of the orchestra or work on music readiness skills like understanding tempo and dynamics. We also teach interdisciplinary classes, which blend music with other subjects like math, science, social studies, language arts, and foreign language. We typically will see an individual classroom of students only once per year. To maximize the learning potential of those sessions, most of our classes include pre-conference lessons for the teacher to do ahead of time with the students, as well as post-conference lessons to further learning. Often, our classes include boxes of materials that we send out in advance so that the classroom can work with them before, during, or even after the video conference. Additionally, something that makes CIM's video conferences different from those of many other content providers is that we include live music performances by our conservatory students in virtually every class that we do. So you may ask, why is all this important? Well, in a broader long-term sense, we are helping to foster a deeper appreciation for classical music among the next generation of concertgoers and helping to make classical music a relevant part of their daily lives. More practically, distance learning has become a resource for teachers, allowing them to bring classical music into their classroom. Through distance learning, we can bring high-quality classical music to underserved schools, where the students would otherwise not have the opportunity to experience it. Our classes are aligned to both state and national academic standards, so we are reinforcing skills and knowledge that students should already be learning. Finally, our interdisciplinary classes are used to approach academic subjects in a new way. Through music, we are helping students who learn non-traditionally, as well as helping to further engage the classroom as a whole. Today, we are going to be focusing on 2 schools with which we did extensive work during the 2009-2010 school year. One is in inner-city Cleveland, Ohio, and the other is in rural New London. In a few minutes, you'll meet Kimberly Alfred, music teacher at Wilson Elementary in Cleveland. She chose primarily to do interdisciplinary classes with her students in an effort to help them improve their scores on state-mandated standardized tests. One of the classes she chose for her 8th graders was Math in Music, which takes a musical approach to math concepts, including geometry, percents, ratios, and fractions. And I'm going to be showing you a piece of that class now. This is going to be an interactive demonstration, so if you'd like to have maybe a finger on the mute button so you can unmute, I'm going to need some feedback from all of you. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, before the video conference, students complete a worksheet that looks like this. And we're going to go to my document camera so that you can all see it. All right, so I will zoom in just a little bit so you can kind of see that close up. So this worksheet is all about using music notes to represent fractions and then doing a variety of concepts or a variety of problems around that concept. So the students are given a key that looks like this. Okay, you should be able to about see that. I'll slide it up just a little bit. There we go. So on this key, you can see that we're taking the notes and rests that we're all familiar with as musicians, and we're relating them to fractions. So the whole note would be either 4/4 or 16/16. the half note or half rest would be 1/2 or 8/16. And so not only are we using the notes to represent the fractions, the students are also having to do some conversions and finding the least common denominator between some of these different note values. Okay, so they're given that, and then they get to do the worksheet that I showed you a moment ago. And this worksheet has a lot of different types of problems on it. So it's using the notes, to represent the fractions, and then allowing the students to solve the problem based on their knowledge from what they learned on the key sheet. Now, at the very end of the worksheet, the last question looks like this. And the students are actually assigned to write their own rhythm. And they're given a space down here to do that. And we're actually going to be writing our own rhythm interactively right now. Now, I've printed the directions a little bit larger. Everything that we're doing obviously has to add up to one whole, and one whole would be a measure in 4/4 meters. So that's what the students end up writing. So let's see if I can maybe pull that out just a little bit so you can see it. That looks almost right. There we go. Okay, now not only are we following these directions, but we also give the students a manipulative. This is something that we send out in the box ahead of time. And they are getting a magnet board that looks like this. And we also have magnets with a lot of different notes on it that stick right to that board. So the students have a whole set of these magnets, and they can practice putting them in different orders and kind of mess around with them a little. So I'm going to read the directions. First of all, you may not use any whole notes or whole rests. So that obviously is because a whole note or whole rest would take up the entire measure. You can only use one half note, which is not required, but you can use a half note. You must use at least 1/8 note and 2/16 notes. So I'm going to go ahead and take 1/8 note and 2/16 and place them on the board. And we can move these around a little bit later if we want to. So we have 1/8 note and 2/16 notes, and you must use at least one rest. So I'm going to ask you if I could get some volunteers to tell me what note I should put up next. Tanya, maybe if you could help me by calling on different sites to give me some answers, that would be great.
Yes, any sites who would like to comment on that perhaps could let me know via the chat, or Bruce could unmute you.
It might be faster if we just have Bruce unmute them just for a second to give an answer.
Okay.
Do I have any takers?
I understood the question.
I'm looking for what note I should put on the board next. So what would you like to use? All right, I have a 16th rest. Good. So put our 16th rest right here. Very good. All right, so far I have an 8th, a 16th rest, and 2/16 notes. Okay, so slide this up just a smidge so you can see. If we're doing fractions, I have 1/8, which is the equivalent of 2/16. And then I have here 3/16. So currently I have 5/16, which means that I need 11 more 16ths total to add up. So what should I add in next? Any takers?
Use a
Half note. Okay, so my half note is equal to 8/16. Okay, so I have 1 plus 3 is 4, plus 8 is 12, so I need 4 more 16ths. Oh, I'm sorry, 2 plus 3 is 5. Plus 8 is 13. Okay, so I need something that would equivalent to 3 more 16ths. What should I add in?
How about an 1/8 and a 16th?
12 and working
An
K-12.
1/8 and a 16th.
Okay.
All right.
And this is
All right. Now, to make this a little bit easier, we all know as musicians that this looks like a pretty tricky rhythm to read. So I'm going to try and make this a little bit simpler for musicians that would actually be reading it. So there we have our 1/8, which of course is the equivalent of 2/16. Okay, so I have 2 plus 1 is 3, plus 8 is 11, plus 3 is 14 plus 2 is 16. So yes, that all adds up. All right, so I think I'm just going to do something like this and put these together. And let's see, how about if we do something like, do this. All right. Okay, so then the students would take this rhythm that we have kind of come up with here, and they would transfer that then onto their worksheet. All right, so you can see how math comes together. Now, I'm going to explain how we would actually use this as part of the video conference. Obviously, doing the worksheet is great practice, but what is the practical application of that? So what would happen is the students would do this in advance, typically about a week ahead of time, and then Kim took their rhythms and she faxed them to me. I then took those rhythms, gave them to one of our composition students here at CIM, who arranged the rhythms into a short little piece of music for some students to play. And so we'll typically take out of a class of, say, 20 rhythms, maybe about 5 or so get arranged into little short pieces of music. Okay? So then what happens is during the video conference, we bring in some of our CIM students to perform the rhythms. So Kim's students were actually able to hear music that they wrote performed live during the video conference, which is quite an accomplishment for a room full of 8th graders. Now, to tell you more about how Wilson used video conferencing through CIM, I'd like to introduce Ms. Catherine Bush. Throughout her career, Ms. Bush has worked as a teacher, peer advisor, and mentor, and she has worked in private, charter, and public schools, and has served as a principal in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Florida, and Arizona. Through her work, she explores innovative ways to partner with universities, colleges, and cultural arts institutions before exposing her students to the many ways one learns and engages in the world around them. So she is currently the principal of Wilson School in Cleveland, Ohio. Here is Ms. Catherine Bush.
Good morning. First, let me begin by telling you a little about our city. Cleveland has been rated as the poorest big city in the United States since 2004 by the U.S. Census Bureau, with a poverty rate of 13% compared to a national average, a poverty rate of 33% compared to a national average of 13%. PowerPoint. Cleveland also faces higher than average rates of unemployment, bankruptcy, mortgage foreclosures, homelessness, mental health challenges, and crime. Cleveland Metropolitan School District is Ohio's second largest district, serving a very diverse community. Characteristics of the community include 44,000 students, 70% black, 15% white, 11% Hispanic, and 3% other ethnicities. 4,632 students represent 30 different languages and cultures as English language learners. 79% live at or below the poverty line. 100% are eligible for free breakfast and lunch through the Federal Universal Meals Program. 2,000 are homeless. 21% are identified as students with disabilities, and 38.2 will attend more than one school in a single academic year. The Cleveland Metropolitan School District launched a comprehensive and extensively researched academic transformation program to respond to long-standing district challenges and to build upon pockets of excellence within the school district. Through repurposing, refocusing, and closing schools, the academic transformation program aggressively addresses 60 lowest performing schools in the 2010-11 school year. Wilson School was designed a couple of years ago specifically to educate our district's deaf population. In 2010, I was selected to be principal to lead this new and innovative school, which is the only program of its kind in northeastern Ohio. We service all the deaf students in Cleveland from ages 3 to 14 years old. The deaf education and special education programs in our school make up 30% of our school student body. as we are moving toward mainstreaming all of our special education students into the general education classes.
Thank you. Thank you, Catherine. Next, I would like to introduce Ms. Kimberly Alfred, who is a performing arts teacher at Wilson School. Kim earned a Bachelor of Music and Education degree from the Boston Conservatory of Music in Boston, Massachusetts. After graduating, she taught at a nearby school for a couple of years before returning home to Cleveland, where she began teaching in Cleveland Metropolitan Schools. She began her work with deaf education students in 2006 and recently earned a Master of Education in Special Education and Educational Technology from Notre Dame College. Kim will now tell you how she has used video conferencing programs from CIM in her classroom.
Good morning. Distance learning with the Cleveland Institute of Music was an opportunity to bridge the digital divide with inner city students. Due to recent budget cuts, it would be nearly impossible to take 100 plus students on a field trip. But through distance learning, my students could be exposed to a prestigious musical institution without having to leave the classroom. This was a means of providing my students with an increased global perspective of the community surrounding them. Distance learning also provided a necessary visual experience for my deaf students. They were able to grasp musical concepts that are challenging to teach in a traditional style. Many of my deaf students participated in the Percussion Summit program. This class is all about a meeting of percussion styles from African to Western.
I'd like to show you a clip from one of Wilson's Percussion Summit classes. What you're about to see is a classroom comprised of both deaf and hearing students. And this segment is from the end of the class where the students are learning about African drumming. Here, they are demonstrating how drum rhythms can be used to communicate messages. Let's take a look.
The rhythm of the drums and also sometimes the pitch of the drums would imitate their words. So I'm going to show you, we're going to use some different phrases. The first one is, I like to play. Can you say that with me? Ready, go. I like to play. All right, I see some of you are already starting to figure this out on your drums, but let's try this all together. I like to play sounds like this. I like to play. Let's do that all together 3 times. 1, 2, ready, I like to. Good. All right, now the next one we're going to do, never give up. Say that with me. Never give up. Good. Now, when we play never give up, it sounds like this. Never give up. Try it with me 3 times. Ready, go. Good. All right. Now, Ms. Alfred, if you could take the second row and divide them into 2 groups. So half of them will be with the third row and half of them will be with the front row. Okay? So front row and half the second row that is with the front row, you guys are going to play I like to play. And the second half of the middle row plus the third row, you guys are going to play never give up. Okay? So let's try this all together. I'm going to start with the first group with I like to play. Once you start, I want you to keep repeating your pattern. And then I'm going to add in the second group, never give up. And then you keep playing. So both groups will end up playing at the same time. Does anybody have a question? No. No? Okay, good. Then let's try it. Okay, starting with group 1, I like to play. 1, 2, ready, go. Nice job, everybody.
Many of our students do not perform well with math achievement tests, and the cross-curricular math programs like Mozart Math and Math and Music for CIM provided some exposure and remediation of grade-level skills. Some students' deficits in math were strengthened as a result of these programs.
In addition to the math classes and percussion summit, some of Kim's students also participated in a program called Spellers of Note, which is a language arts aligned class for 2nd and 3rd graders. In this class, students learn some musical target vocabulary words through a spelling game, reader's theater, and a Mozart theme. Let's take a look. All right, very good job. Now, what kind of music did Mozart write? Did he write hip hop?
No.
Did he write polka?
No.
What style did Mozart write?
Classical music.
Classical music is exactly right. And who can spell classical music? That's 2 words.
Let's go with Thomas.
CLASI.
All right, very good. I think you just left off the L in classical, but that's really good because that's a really long 2 words to spell. Let's check our magic board.
Yes, you got it right.
What piece does the orchestra play?
A symphony.
Symphony, perfect. And who can spell symphony for us?
Say.
Yes.
Good job. Let's check our magic board.
Right there. That's right there.
My students benefited greatly from participating in these video conferences. They are more confident in the classroom and view technology as a tool to enhance their learning. They started to make more connections from the music curriculum to their academic subjects and learn how to appropriately interact with outside adults who come in and work with them.
Thank you. So we've seen how video conferencing technology and music come together to assist teachers in an urban setting. It's also helpful in rural areas where students do not have regular access to high-quality music performances. Last school year, we delivered around 20 video conferences to schools in New London, Ohio. I would like to introduce you to Carol Gerton, Superintendent of New London Local Schools. Carol earned a bachelor's degree in music education from Bowdoin State University and a master's in administration from Ashland University. She taught for 22 years in public education in city school systems and 17 years combined experience as an administrator in rural districts.
Thank you. Begin by telling you a little bit more about the New London Local School District. Our district is made up of 1,250 pre-K through 12 students. Our student body is 97% Caucasian and 3% multiracial. Our district spans 4 small villages across 87 square miles of basically farmland. Our district has 42% poverty, which means that this percentage of our students get a free breakfast and lunch subsidized by the government. The mean income in New London local schools is $27,500 per year. New London is in a very remote area, and only a few of our students are able to take private music lessons. We have excellent music teachers who go the extra mile to help our students achieve. Because of our location and the fact that most students are not really financially able to attend professional performances, Cleveland Institute of Music has opened the eyes of my students to the possibilities that the academic world has to offer them. They have experienced lessons and concerts they would never, ever have been able to see. 2 of our students have gone on to major in music in college because of our great music staff and the encouragement of our teachers in their distant learning experiences. As a superintendent, I am very grateful for these experiences offered by Cleveland Institute of Music.
Thank you. To begin our series of video conferences with New London last school year, we organized an interactive recital in which performances were given by CIM's conservatory students after which students at New London High School were able to ask them questions. I'd like to show you a clip from that session now.
So we have a couple of minutes. If anyone at the other end wants to ask Bill any questions, I've got a couple for you, Bill.
Okay.
Where are you from?
I'm from Steubenville, Ohio.
Is that a big town or a little town?
Definitely a little town.
What did you do in high school to get ready to come here and study percussion?
Well, I went up to Pittsburgh, and I met with one of the guys from the Pittsburgh Symphony and asked him lots of questions about what sort of things I should be getting into if I wanted to go to school for music, and he definitely put me on the right track.
But what did that mean in high school, though? Did you have to take extra classes, private lessons, any of that stuff?
I took some private lessons. I didn't have to take any extra classes. I just did a lot of individual studying on my own.
Great, wonderful. Does anybody at New London have any questions for Bill?
Yes.
It can be about going to school. It can be about the piece of music, whatever you're curious about.
You said you studied percussion. Did you start off in snare, or did you start off, did you specialize in mallets when you went to the institute?
I actually played nothing but drum set until about my sophomore year of high school. And then I just did a lot of snare drum work and a lot of mallet work. But I started on drum set. So, yeah.
And please go ahead.
How long have you been playing? When did you start?
Marimba or?
No, both.
Both? Okay. Started playing marimba my sophomore year of high school, so about 3-4 years.
And then when did you start general percussion? Middle school?
I was always banging on pots and pans when I was really little, and I played in the middle school band. So
you're one of the famous kitchen percussionists.
Exactly.
Yeah. Any other questions?
What year are you now at the Cleveland Institute?
I'm a sophomore right now. In my second year.
Next, I would like to introduce Dennis Gerton, Gifted Coordinator of Visual and Performing Arts in New London Local Schools. Dennis has worked in public education in Ohio for 42 years, including 34 years as a public school teacher of vocal music grades 6 through 12. Of that, 30 years were spent in a city school system as well as 4 years in a rural school system. Dennis holds a Bachelor of Music Education degree from Bowling Green State University and a Master of Music Education from Youngstown State University. He has also completed doctoral work at Kent State University and training in gifted education in visual and performing arts at Ashland University. Dennis will now tell you about how New London utilized distance learning programs from CIM.
Because New London is 60 miles from Cleveland and 80 miles from Columbus in a very rural area, we do not have many resources for upper-level arts education. I had previously had some involvement with distance learning, but when I came to New London, started looking for new distance learning programs. I found CIM and liked their selection of programming for students of all ages. As Mrs. Gerton said, there is not a lot of availability for local lessons or attending concerts. There are few chances for private lessons unless a lot of travel is involved. So we have few students who are taking private lessons now. In working with CIM, we began with some general music programs for elementary age students, and we focused on high-level programming with top performers and educators working with our students and ensembles.
As Dennis and Carol have mentioned, there are not many opportunities for private lessons and instruction in New London, which has proven to be only truer if a student plays a less common instrument like the oboe or the bassoon. So in this next clip, you're going to see Marissa, and she is a young oboist from New London High School, and she's here in a coaching session with CIM preparatory faculty member Jack Harrell.
Did you hear you had a little bit of a break between your C and the D when you went over the break? That's a very difficult thing to do on the oboe because we're going from a note C, which is basically very open, to a note that's basically very closed, which is that D. So make sure your air is always continuing through. You can't be light with your air when you're going between those two notes. Let me just hear. Good. No. Are you tonguing those notes?
Trying not to.
Okay, good. Yeah, make sure you're not tonguing them.
Yeah.
Make that connection as smooth as you possibly can. That was very good. Do it one more time. Good. What I'm going after is I want you to be able to sustain the legato, the smoothness between the notes. And that was a lot better.
Working with CIM through distance learning has given our students a chance to see other students in an environment where they study with top musicians. It has also increased their knowledge base and their interest in being better musicians.
Thank you, Dennis. Next, we're going to take a look at another coaching session from New London. Before we do, I'd like to encourage you to post your questions to the chat room because we will begin our panel discussion portion of the program shortly. So be thinking of those questions. But first, we're going to see two trumpeters from New London High School's jazz band. And here they're taking an improvisation lesson from Paul Ferguson, CIM adjunct faculty member and director of jazz studies at Case Western Reserve University.
Okay, so you're beginners, right? So you're always starting on the root, aren't you? Okay. Well, you want to get to, can you start your solo on the 11th, on your A? Just linger, play like an A whole note for a while, and then improvise off that. Okay? 1, 2. Well, any A, just the A you can hit for right now. 1, 2, and. Yeah. Start on that note. Hang on to that note for a while. Can you go A, F sharp, and then go from there? So you're going to play 11, 9, real pretty notes, and then improvise from there. 1, 2, 3, and. Yeah, that was pretty. That was pretty. Is more interesting, okay? Do the same thing. Get used to the higher note chord tones, 9ths and 11ths and 13ths. Actually, start on the 13th, your C sharp, okay? Go
Him or me?
You, yeah.
Okay.
Go 13, 11, 9, 1, 2, 3, and. That's nice. That way you're playing some more interesting notes, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Distance learning allows our rural students to become a part of the CIM environment and perform and study with great students and faculty members in Cleveland while sitting in a comfortable setting in our home school.
Before we get to our panel discussion, you've seen some various private lessons and coaching sessions and things that we've done with New London. Obviously, we do that with a lot of schools around the country. Something that we started doing last year, this is kind of interesting. We actually have a student, she's a viola student in Washington State, which is on the complete opposite side of the country from Cleveland. And she is actually taking regular viola lessons with Jeff Irvine, our faculty member. And she's actually enrolled through the prep department here at CIM and has been continuing taking lessons. She's now in her second year of doing that. I believe that she is a junior or senior in high school this year, and is looking at coming to CIM for college. So just kind of another interesting way that we are using distance learning with all ages of students all around the country. All right, now I would like to give our audience a chance to ask some questions. Hopefully you've been able to post some of those to the chat room. We have, of course, all four of our panelists that you've already met are here to answer your questions, and I can help out with that as well.
Thanks, Heather. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes. Thanks, Heather, for this fascinating discussion presentation and for bringing in the perspective of school teachers, which is so necessary for a conference of this type. I did have a couple of questions here. Please keep sending them. We had a question from George Hess in Singapore. George, would you like to ask the question?
Sure. Actually, my first question is what kind of video conferencing systems these schools have that you're working
That's
with?
a good question. I will let each of them answer for you individually, and I'll start with Dennis. You mostly deal with that, right?
We have a simple portable system, and it is just a mount on a regular TV on a dolly that we roll from room to room, but it works very effectively. And we're able to then take it from our music areas to use it in other classroom areas throughout the building.
Thanks. Should I tell them about yours? Okay. So if we can come back to me. The unit that they're actually using over at Wilson belongs to CIM. It's convenient that Wilson is maybe 2 miles from us. They're literally right around the corner. So when they need to do video conferencing with us, we loan them our portable system, and they connect that up to the internet at their school. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, that does, because the next follow-up question was where do they find the funding for, where does an inner city school find the funding for a $10,000 or $15,000 video conferencing system? Yeah.
Right. So we have lent them our system. There are grant funds available, and that helps out a lot of districts. Many of the sessions that we've done with Wilson and New London have been paid for through grant funding. So that's definitely a help. I should probably thank the Martha Holden Jennings Foundation for the generous grant that they gave us last year. So.
Thanks.
There is another question to CIM distance learning from Michael, DKDM. Michael, would you like to ask the question? Well, I'll read it out.
Okay.
Is it compulsory to teach young children as faculty at Cleveland Institute of Music?
Can you rephrase that? I'm not sure I understand. Greg?
Faculty members at CIM are required to teach young students?
Oh. Okay, no, they're not. What we're doing through distance learning, I do a lot of the teaching, especially to the younger grades of students here. I'm doing a lot of that. Some of our faculty members also serve on the preparatory faculty, but not all of them.
Okay, and I have some questions which were sent to me also by your audience at Cleveland Institute. And those questions are to the panel, to the K-12 educators, if they're there.
Yes, they're all here.
Yep. So the first question is, why is music education important in your school system?
Yeah, maybe we can talk to each of the administrators about that. Carol?
Well, it's important in our school system, and my background, of course, is in the arts, but I think it's important in a school system so that you can have activities that all students have a chance to participate in. We have a big athletic program. We have a big arts program. We do lots of gifted art programs, and my husband does that. And I think it's very important to offer those programs so that our students will be well-rounded. Because in Ohio, test scores are very, very important, and we're kind of tied to the higher core standards and test scores. And I think these kids need to do well in their testing, but they also need an outlet to show their other talents.
And Catherine, if you'd like to weigh in on that also?
Why are the arts important in Cleveland and to every child around the world? It helps round out a child. It improves the quality of their life. Music and the fine arts are things that they can take with them from pre-K all the way into their adulthood. It levels the playing field, and that's why we're so grateful for the Cleveland Institute of Music for providing our children with the opportunity to see quality concerts, to have musicians come and teach our students other genres of music besides what they're familiar with. It is a non-negotiable as far as I'm concerned. The fine arts are so important for all of our students.
Thanks. Do we have any other questions?
Yes, now very specifically to video conferencing. How was video conferencing generally, well, was it different for students versus teachers in terms of how they received these video conferencing sessions, or even were there different responses depending on the grades of the students?
Who would like to take that one? Okay. You had a lot of grade levels of students working with yours.
They were all excited about it. I think it was just a new way of like them learning, and it just was maybe at first uncomfortable because they knew that they could hear what they were saying. But I think once they got past that point, they were very excited about it. I had 8th graders that were very excited about the math lessons, and the younger students loved the Scholars of Note because they were acting out the parts and they were interactive. So I think that these students now, all of our students are very technology, like that's how they learn. Everything is interactive as far as what they watch on TV and stuff. So I think for them, they really enjoyed the sessions.
And let's also go to Dennis. I think he'd like to weigh in on that as well.
Once we got past the idea of waving and seeing yourself on TV and all of the great stuff, and having Heather jump in and talking to them, and we got into some real interactive things. And the kids, I think, are so fascinated by the fact that they're seeing somebody on a screen or something on a screen that is so far away from where they are. And the fact that the quality that comes in from CIM is so high a level, especially with our high school kids. They're astounded by the performances and by the quality of interaction that has happened between CIM and New London.
Okay, thank you. Another question?
Yes, I've got a question from Tom Taylor at NCCU. What is the latency between points? For example, the pianist we just saw teaching the 2 trumpet students.
I'm sorry, what was the question? I got the part about the pianist and the 2 trumpet students.
Yeah, what is the latency between points? It's a very technical question in terms of the latency.
About half a second.
Okay, about half a second. Greg is feeding me the answer here because I actually don't know.
Okay.
I think he wants me to kind of explain what that clip was all about. The coaching that we do is done in a call and response manner, and even nearby there's enough delay that the 2 ends cannot technically play together. So there was actually about a half-second delay between the piano and the trumpeters, but I feel that because it was an improvisation, I think it sounds okay the way that it was kind of fitting together. Yeah, to the students, of course, on the far end, it sounds to them as though they're playing right along with the piano on every beat. It's just from the recording from our end, we get a little bit of that delay.
And a further question from NCCU. Are there examples to see of multiple locations playing simultaneously?
Actually, I don't think I have any that are recorded. Lindsay's going to talk to you for a second.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Krause. I am the studio manager and media producer here at the Distance Learning Department at the Cleveland Institute of Music. I've actually been doing the technical portion while everyone's been asking questions and moving cameras around. The best examples that we have of simultaneous playing are not currently available for viewing right now. They're on DVDs of archives and things like that, but the most recent probably was a conducting masterclass that Michael Tilson Thomas did to our students in Mixon. They did an Appalachian Spring masterclass for the conducting students themselves. And we had a chamber orchestra on the stage, and Michael worked with the conducting students, and then he actually began demonstrating for them and conducting our students. And there is a little bit of latency. What I've noticed with the high def equipment that we have a Polycom HDX 9002, and that is the shortest amount of delay that I have seen with any of the equipment that we have. Across the hall in our smaller studio, we have a VSX 8000, and the codec that we loaned to Wilson is a VSX 7000. And with both of those machines, it's not possible to do the type of thing that we were doing with Michael Tilson Thomas with the conducting masterclass. Does that help answer your question?
Yes.
Yes, thanks. Thanks, Lindsay.
Okay. Any more technical questions while I'm sitting here?
I don't have any that are coming to me, unless anybody else has any other questions. I think we should do your second session, which is now the panel presentation or discussion. Over to you, Heather.
Right, which is kind of what we've been doing. So if anybody has any more questions, we can go ahead and keep answering those. Or I can feed some questions as well if we don't have any.
Bruce, is everybody unmuted rather than sending things through the chat?
Either way is fine. All right, well, I have some backup questions here, so I can just kind of go ahead and start going from those. In general, to both of the schools that we've been working with, how has classical music been received by the students in your schools? So are they excited about it? Are they curious because they don't really know that much about it? Do they assume that it's going to be boring and then change their minds, or how does that work out? So maybe let's go to Kim first.
The students seem to be very excited about very curious. Most of my students are African American, and they're not really exposed to that genre of style of music. So it's a new style, but their curiosity peaks when we first read the story about Mozart, and they were very interested. So I think that it's a good introductory to classical music.
Dennis, maybe we can go to you. You can share a little on that as well.
Especially in the high school level, the level of playing, with classical music is higher and more intricate in many cases, and the kids, especially with the instruments that were from CIM, were fascinated at the high level of playing ability, and I think that they were captivated in the music and the playing at the same time.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from any other sites? No? Okay.
Actually, Christine, I do over here.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
We're here at Manhattan School of Music, and I applaud CIM for bringing in the teachers. It's so wonderful to hear your perspective, and I'm very grateful for that. And I'm interested to know, so what do you see as the future of this in your classrooms? Do you see doing more of this kind of interaction? Are you challenged by funding issues? Are your administrators supportive of this? Where are we going next? What do you see in, say, the next 3 years?
That's a very good question. Dennis, do you want to start?
I'm very fortunate that I know the superintendent very well, and we can negotiate a lot. It is very important in our school system, and as all of you know, funding is always a main issue. and many programs are deleted because of the funding issues. But our administration, our superintendent, our Board of Education, and the number of kids, the excitement of the kids has generated into the community. So I see nothing but growing programs and more kids being involved with this. I have lots of kids coming to me saying, well, I saw Marissa on TV with the oboe. I'd really like to do this with the flute. Can you find somebody for me, or somebody with the trombone? So we're generating lots and lots of individual and ensemble activity within our groups.
I mean, we definitely would like to, but budgeting is always an issue. Lately our budgets are very tight right now. So basically we can go to outside resources. For example, University Hospital has generously donated stuff to our school and is a partner with our school. So we look to outside resources to help us fund these programs, because we definitely want to continue them in the classroom.
Do we have any other questions from any of our outside sites?
Yes, actually, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hi, this is David Smook at Peabody Conservatory, and my colleague Ildar Kananoff is here, and he has a question for you.
Yes, go ahead.
Hello, I'm amazed by this technology, definitely, and I'm very enthusiastic about what you do. I have a question. I grew up in a country in Russia which traditionally had well-established system of education, musical education, on a very high professional level for young children. And my question is, do you think it is feasible, it's possible to implement some more academic types of programs for these remote rural schools, something like real solfeggio or elementary music theory, or even elements of harmony and voice leading? Do you think it is possible using this technology?
I hope so. Carol, maybe I'll turn that over to you. Or I could talk.
Sure. We used our distance learning equipment to get classes from other school districts as well, and French classes and a Chinese class. We use it that way as well. As far as the music goes, I think it would be excellent, because our students, we have a wonderful elementary music teacher, but she has 600 students to teach, and that's quite a lot to get to in a year's time. And she doesn't really have a lot of time to teach the way she would really like to. And so I think these programs, if we could use some of the concepts that you have just discussed and get some programming and have put groups of children together out of class time to do this, I think it'd be great, because I do think we need to stretch what musical needs our children need to have, and what they already have, we need to certainly develop those into more experiences, because we graduate many talented musicians, but they could be a lot more successful in life and a lot more talented if we had some more professionals helping them. So the Cleveland Institute of Music has done so much for my school system. It's a fabulous, fabulous program.
If I could just kind of add a little bit to that, I think it would be fantastic if we had available here, like what you're talking about, a very structured program where students are getting that high level of music education. Unfortunately, throughout the country, I don't feel that there's a lot of uniformity from one state to the next, and even within a state from one school district to the next. We do have state and national standards for music education that are at a very high level. Unfortunately, due to a lot of the budget cuts and all of the funding issues that we have, unfortunately, arts teachers and music teachers seem to be the first people to go. Speaking from my personal experience, I taught in inner city middle schools for about 3 years before I came to CIM, and the reason I was looking for a job is because I was laid off from one of those schools, and it's the lowest person on the totem pole is the first one to go. And unfortunately, the music staff, as Carol mentioned, their elementary music teacher has 600 students to teach every week. So it's difficult with all of the constraints that we have, But with proper funding available and proper emphasis placed on music, I really think that, in my mind, is where music education needs to go. So I hope that we can get there at some point.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Do we have any other questions? Okay. Well, I can offer up the next one. So in general, for everybody, what is the impact that CIM has had on learning in your school? Not necessarily just the music, but in general.
I'd like to answer that question.
Go ahead.
I can say, because we're where our school is located, we're in a cultural arts corridor where there are many opportunities at the Art Museum and the Cleveland Institute of Music, the Cleveland Orchestra, that it's opening the eyes of our students. Although they live very close to all of these institutions, they really don't take advantage, or they don't know what's offered to them. So it's opening a door for them, and it's opening Pandora's box. So they're excited, and as Kim said, the first time they heard classical music, they had no idea what to expect. They had no idea what classical music was, but now they can make connections between different types of genres of music and appreciate it and be on that level playing field with the students in the suburbs, and offer so many opportunities for them. So yes, it has changed their lives. They're excited. They want to learn more. When CIM comes in and when the musicians come into our school, everyone's looking at the instruments. What are those instruments? How can I have them in my classroom? So not only is it generating interest within the students, it's generating interest with among the staff and among the parents who come to our school and see of all the opportunities that can be afforded to their children. So it's been fabulous for us.
See, I have a question for New London. Could you describe the value of the coaching sessions you've done, and how were they viewed by your band director? I know, Dennis, you have a different band director this year than last year.
Yes.
So how has that all gone down?
Well, I think the previous band director really emphasized the performance aspect and the availability of the person who was on the screen. For instance, Mr. Ferguson, it has generated so much interest with the kids. We have a small jazz program, and it's getting bigger and bigger, and they keep saying, can Mr. Ferguson come back? Can he come back? Because we want to learn about improvisation. We want to learn about those 13th notes and those 11th notes that you don't talk about in a normal rehearsal in New London. And they're starting to use vocabulary. They're starting to recognize that the people on the other side of the screen, that music to them is a language. And I have 2 or 3 students here who are playing in a local youth symphony only because of the excitement generated because of CIM. And there are more and more kids getting on the wagon all the time. I think our kids have the feeling that because of where they are, they don't have that opportunity, and I think CIM has opened that to them, that it comes right into their room, and they see, yes, I can do that too, and I have that interest, and I'd like to keep going. So I can't speak highly enough about what our programs have done for us.
Do we have any other questions from our? Go ahead.
Yes, I have another question here. How do you see the importance for the conservatory students in the experience of working with young pupils and students?
All right, I guess that's kind of a question for me. So the question is about the importance of our conservatory students working with the younger generation of students. I guess this could be either through video conferencing or not. This is my personal opinion. I feel that based on all of the financial constraints that our country is facing right now, orchestras are going bankrupt all over the place. There are not as many jobs in classical music as there used to be. And I feel that our students, as musicians, they need to be, as CIM says, the complete musician. And part of that involves being a teacher and being able to teach people of different abilities and different ages, and also just being able to work with people, and if you're out giving a concert to a group of people, being able to talk to them and interact with them. And so I think our students are starting to get a lot of experience of doing that through distance learning. As you've seen in the clips that we've shown where we had a student performer, they're interacting with the students on the far end, and they're answering questions and giving them demonstrations. This year I actually started a distance learning apprentice program, which has just started just a couple of weeks ago actually, and I've taken a handful of students to kind of pilot this program, and I'm training them in the basics of teaching. And then to our existing presentations, they're going to be adding in their own little teaching segments to go along with what we're already doing. So I think that's just taking what we've been doing in utilizing our live performers and kind of taking that up to the next level. Thank you.
Well, that was, sorry, if I can just follow it up just very quickly. I wonder whether you got any feedback also in terms of teaching strategies that they might find different with video conferencing. And the reason for this question is that we have here at the Royal College of Music a course into teaching. And our students are now very interested in observing not just people they recognize, but also people who teach by this particular means. Using technology, so I guess they are trying to develop new teaching techniques, and I wonder whether you had any information on that.
Okay, so teaching techniques through video conferencing. I guess I'm a good person to talk about that because I've done both, teaching in person for a long time as well as for the last about year and a half or so, teaching through video conference. I think the biggest thing for me, at least to get used to, was the delay. In that if you ask a question to the students on the far end, it's going to take them a second longer to get back to you, and you may feel at first as though they didn't understand the question, they didn't hear the question, but in fact it's just the delay coming into play there. Another thing, of course, if we're talking about music performance teaching, the issue that you can't play along with the student. And I know I taught private lessons for over a decade before I taught public school, and it is almost imperative if you're working with someone, you feel that you need to be able to play along with them so that they'll really understand. And so finding a different way to explain what it is that you want them to do. We've done a lot of call and response in that way. And finally, for what we're doing working with K-12 students, we really rely on the classroom teacher on the far end to partner with us and to team teach with us. Typically, if we're asking a question to the students, we'll ask the far end teacher to call on the student so that we're not, trying to see the students on the screen and say, okay, a person in the red shirt in the back row, I think you have your hand up. So that works really well. And then utilizing our pre-conference and post-conference lessons. Most of what we're doing, with the exception of the people that you see here with which we've had kind of an extensive relationship thanks to grant money, most often we will see one classroom of students one time for the school year, and we get 45 minutes to make an impression on those students. So we utilize the pre-conference lessons to kind of extend learning a little bit farther for them, as well as the post-conference lessons.
Maybe ask Dennis and Kim how they have adjusted their teaching
Okay.
in this environment.
All right. And to extend that also over to Dennis and to Kim, how have you adjusted your teaching styles, or to Dennis, how have the teachers in your school district done that to kind of adjust to the video conferencing?
I mean, I love technology. I mean, so it's not really an adjustment for me because I've done classes, and I'm just I guess modeling the technology to the students more so, but really not an adjustment to me. I know some teachers would be very uncomfortable with technology. Some classroom teachers generally are very uncomfortable with new technology, and I just feel that I love technology, so I try to model it to my students that, it's another tool to learn.
Being the coordinator and not the actual classroom teacher, I have been observing in both elementary and high school the programming that we have been doing. Our teachers love technology. They are as excited about it as the students. Because you are bringing in, especially in the field of music, you are bringing in examples of high quality of performances. You're bringing in high quality of materials and of programming. Heather did a wonderful job with our elementary with a series, I think, of 7 programs that the kids were climbing in the doors to get there to see what was going to happen next. I love the continuity, and that's one of the things that I really drove me to CIM was the fact that there is a lot of continuity and obviously a lot of thought process put into the programming. So we're getting advantages from both ends. We're getting the full programming of a series, and yet we're getting the individual coaching and the individual performances at the upper level in our high school. So it works out wonderful for us.
Okay, we have another question from NCCU. I can ask that now.
Please go ahead. I saw that one in the chat room, Tanya, and I popped in to answer it for you. Why don't you go ahead and share the question with everyone?
Question is, we have a lot of rural communities near our school, and we try to replicate the CIM model of service. How many of the students in the elementary, middle, or high schools are talking or asking to come to study at CIM as a result of your program?
Thank you. It's a very good question, and the answer is a little complicated. CIM, as I'm sure this audience knows, is a very elite music conservatory. So getting into CIM as a student performer is very difficult, is very challenging. I mean, they had 4 openings in the flute section in the flute department this year, and they auditioned over 200 people, I think was the number. And CIM had the luxury of being able to pick the very best 4 from that group of 200. So connecting into a random school someplace, even if they're nearby, even if they have a really good music program, would be very difficult for that program to then send one of their students here to study music performance. CIM's curriculum focuses on the performance aspects of classical music, and the other musical literature, musical history, musical education, all those things are more used as supporting the music performance teaching that's happening here rather than academic ends to themselves. Now, something interesting that's happening is we are getting a lot of interest at the preparatory level. So somebody who's playing in concert band in their high school has exhausted the local teachers in brass instruments, and they want to start doing private lessons, and there's nobody in their local community that they can do that. We're starting to get more and more people interested in connecting to us by video conference for what amounts to private lessons, and we're in various conversations with different school systems about that. Several of the students at New London have taken advantage of that capability, a series of oboe coaching sessions, a series of bassoon coaching sessions, and the jazz improvisation coaching that you saw a clip of a little earlier is another example of that. I should introduce myself. I'm Greg Howe. I'm the Director of Distance Learning. I didn't say who I was at the beginning. So we see a growing interest in all that. And I'll sit here and field whatever the next question is. Yeah.
Sorry, I lost you there.
Are there any more questions? We have a surprise for you all, and I'm going to let Heather slip back in here and tell you what it is.
I don't have any more questions.
Heather and I will change places, and I'll let her introduce our surprise.
Thank you, Greg. Well, I do have one final surprise for everybody today. While we've been talking, CIM alumnus Kevin Krumenauer actually took the rhythm that you wrote as part of the math and music demonstration and arranged it for an ensemble of our students who have been rehearsing over in our second studio this morning. So I would like to introduce to you Chen, Gabrielle, and Katrina, who are here to perform for you today. Thank you, ladies. All right. Well, I would like to thank everybody for joining us today. If you would like to learn more about the classes that we offer to K-12 schools, please visit our website, and we're going to show that to you now. It's www.cim.edu/DL. And you can go there and read about all of the classes that we offer. We also have the class materials packet that we send to the teacher that kind of details a little bit more about each class. Those are all downloadable for free off of our website. You can also contact me with any specific questions or comments. My email address is hly2@case.edu. And I have really enjoyed working and talking with you today. I would like to extend my thanks by thanking George Hess and all of the other organizers of this conference. Thank you so much for joining us and for having us participate. We really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Can I say thank you on the behalf of the committee from the conference to such an interesting and very valuable presentation and panel discussion for your contribution this afternoon or morning or evening. Thanks, Heather. Thanks, Stephen, and students. We will now move on to our next presentation, slightly ahead of schedule. And we are ready. I would like to introduce you the next session entitled Improvisation Across Distance Masterclass. This will be presented by Justin DiCioccio from Manhattan School of Music and Michael Formanek, Peabody Institute. I'll pass it on to Christiane Orto, who will do further introduction.